everyone, and welcome to Speaking Our Truth. I'm Jolene.
And I'm Samantha.
We are going to be doing another episode of intuition on how to use it. We did attempt it before and it was an absolute disaster. So we are trying this again and hopefully this will work. But yeah, so basically we're going to start with what intuition is. I'm going to go with my definition and then Samantha, you can maybe weigh in. So intuition can be described as a gut feeling. It's an inner voice, something you just know without, it's like a sense of knowing without really having conscious reasoning, or kind of like a nudge that will help you to, navigate, make decisions, that kind of thing. How would you describe it or define it?
It's close to how I would describe it with being a gut feeling or just an inner type of knowing. I found that it's usually more an internal type of thing. It's something that we feel as opposed to something that we see. Sometimes you can see like a specific sign or a pattern or things like that, and it might all kind of click together, and that might be your intuition. But I always kind of see that more as coming from spirit when it's outside, like when I'm seeing it, versus coming from within using your intuition. So that would be my difference.
Yes, but yeah, for now we'll just focus on the intuition rather than getting message from spirit. But yes, it can be very similar. It's kind of depending on also what kind of gifts you have, because like my main gift would be claircognizance, which is just knowing things which without having a reason for knowing. So that could be just me, because intuition can also be as a result of things like you've studied or things you've learned, that it's just the reminder going off in your alarm bells. If we're talking about the broader sense of intuition and not necessarily listening to our guides, it's things that we've learned or we've experienced, or things that just sit right with us, that kind of about you're accessing information in your subconscious without thinking it through.
And that's the same thing too, because I'm sure we've all been there when you've met someone and you were perfectly fine before meeting that individual, and suddenly you feel sick to your stomach, and that's your body telling you this is no bueno. So that's kind of just a really simple version of intuition in the body, right?
Your body will tell you, but this is also things you can learn from past experience. So if you've encountered a similar energy in the past, then those alarm bells will trigger when you put in the same or similar situation again. So and it's also the ability to understand things instinctively. You have an understanding of a situation, without having necessarily a foresight or foreknowledge of that particular situation. I know I said previously it's things that you have learned, but things in similar experiences, not the new situation. Makes sense. Yeah, based on past experiences and subconscious knowledge and emotional cues. So again, like you say, it's like something, a feeling that you would have. So what kind of emotional responses are triggered? So that's basically what it is about, and why is it important? Why do you feel it is important? How is using your intuition benefited you?
So I think following our intuition is incredibly important in life. I think our intuition is always, it's always there. It's always looking out for our best interests, is my opinion. So I think that's why it's so important to listen to it, because it has our best interests at heart. It's pure, it's unbiased. There's no emotional attachment behind it. It's very, this is what's the right way, things like that. I think especially in today's society where we have so much overthinking, so much being outside the body, the intuition really forces us to get into our body and connect with ourselves. So that's why I think it's so important to kind of connect everything together. How about you?
Yeah, and it can help you with making decisions or solving problems, or even making discoveries about yourself, like getting to know yourself. And it can help you with improving your relationships if you're not just basing solely on like emotional reactions. Yeah, there
Mm-hmm.
is some emotional aspect tied to it, but there's a difference between overly emotional and trusting the signs or reading the energy of a
Mm-hmm.
situation. It's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily mutually exclusive, so that can help you navigate difficult situations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the one thing is where I'm going to be a bit controversial and bring in the topic of where Christianity disagrees with what we do,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they say no, it's not like your intuition or basically it's like the Holy Spirit that guides you, but it's also a tool that you've been given. The way I see it, it's a tool you've been given to help you navigate through life. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're not able to navigate things on your own, and you always need to question somebody else or ask somebody else to make those decisions for you, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have a really difficult time getting through anything, at dealing with
Mm-hmm.
problem situations or
Mm-hmm.
navigating relationships. Let's face it, no relationship is uncomplicated.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the other thing.
I was
How
gonna say,
helping might.
using your intuition, I feel like is incredibly powerful for you as an individual, because then, you're not giving away that power of decision to someone else. You're not constantly looking for validation to support yourself. It's that I trust what I feel, what I hear, what I know, those intuitive hits that come. You don't need someone else to come up to you and go, yeah, that's exactly what it means. You have that so that you can go forward. And I feel like that's more powerful, that you can make your own decisions and reinforce yourself. Yeah, we all need some reinforcement. I think that's human. But it kind of relaxes that need to go out and need other people to accomplish things. You can do it on your own. And I think that's another great reasoning with, like you said, like it's a tool and it has to be used and it has to be grown for it to become incredibly powerful. But I think even just basic intuition is very helpful to us on a soul level, to not need other people so much. And not in a bad way, we do need other
No,
people.
of course. But even if you need other people for their input, or if you need to go to a psychic to get
Mhm.
validation or information, you still need your intuition at the end of the day to determine what resonates with you or whether that actually fits with your situation. Because people's own experiences and their opinions may differ, not being in your situation. So you would need to just, instead of taking what other people say at face value, you would need to lean on your intuition to know
Mhm.
whether or not to apply it. So then we can move on to like tips on how to develop and use your intuition. Like you mentioned earlier already about paying attention to your body and what your body tells you, how you feel in a situation. So the more you practice paying attention
Mhm.
to your body, that will help you be more in tune with your intuition, as you said. And it's good to, when you're practicing, to quiet your mind and try and block out that was the word I was looking for. Try and block out external noises or influences and stuff to help you tune in better. These are good practicing exercises. But yeah, a good way, if you will agree or not, we don't really have too much access to quiet, like wooded areas. I think America has a lot of
There's a lot of
places where you
nature.
could go to that, where you could go into nature and fit into nature. It's not quite that simple, especially if you live in a city, to do things like that. But yeah, it's best if you can get into nature. That would be a great way to tune in and only listen to nature sounds. And failing
Mhm.
that, you could also just listen to nature sounds, meditative music. That's, yeah,
Mhm.
preferably, yeah, nature, natural sounds.
Those are great, but even if, you struggle with that, another great one is just the sound of a fan or like your air
Oh yeah.
conditioner, any of that, just so that you have something to kind of hear, but it's going to drown everything else out, and that's all you got to focus on. That's what I started with when I really got into meditating, was having a fan on and just listening to the fan. It was easier, I guess, for my brain to stop thinking.
But that makes sense, because a lot of people can't sleep without that kind of noise, because it helps to put you in that relaxed state that you need to. I mean, I
Mm,
never thought about the fan, as I'm not really one. I used to get disturbed by the slightest noise. So like some people would need to have like the TV on or music playing, that
mhm.
it would wake me up. It wouldn't. It would put me. I would get relaxed and fall asleep, but then I'd wake up because of the noise, you know. So, but a lot of people need that constant sound. So yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
As well. Also, journaling, if you can try and dream analysis is good if you know how to try and interpret your own needs, but you need a lot of patience for this, practicing self-reflection and discipline to do this, because it's not something like, if you're going to do things like journaling and dream analysis, you can't just do it today and then skip tomorrow and it's going to work, because that's not how it's going to work, and you need to be able to go back onto it and fill in the patterns and look back on how you dealt with past decisions and past experiences to try and develop that pattern, or develop your intuition further. When I started actually going into readings and realizing that I actually had this gift, because I came from a Christian background, so I took a long time before I started accepting beyond the little nudges, and I didn't try and explore why I just knew things. But when I started doing that, I did that in a sense. I guess it helps if you have a good memory. Otherwise, journaling would be best. But I did do that. I did several weeks of like self-reflection and going back on experiences I'd had in my life, and when I'd like just known something and how it turned out, to try and fit in with the patterns. So, and then asking like questions like, was I correct with this and that? And because now I had the freedom to explore it where I didn't before. So that helped me a lot in the beginning when I was coming to terms with the fact that I could use my ability to, read cards and connect with spirit. So yes, that was definitely something that helped me, reflecting on times where I trusted my gut and how it worked out, where I had these strong feelings. And also, even if I didn't trust it, how it worked out in the end. That's also a good way to reflect on it, because then you would could compare how things turned out better when you did listen, as opposed to not. And trusting the process, because it takes patience and time to get through it. Yeah, if you can practice with small decisions and then gradually apply it to larger ones. It becomes stronger the more you practice. But yes, it's also a matter of trial and error. So I know some people like to tell me, and this not so much applies to intuition, but in various instances when when you tell somebody that they're good at manifesting, for example, and then they say, no, but it doesn't work when I do it because X, Y, Z. And I'm like, okay, so you tried it once and it didn't work, so then you didn't try it again because you've decided it didn't work for you. I mean, you could apply that to your intuition as well. I mean, maybe you didn't trust it because maybe you let your personal feelings or or the opinions of others even like get in the way of that. So did you really trust it at the end? Or so it takes a lot of practice and a lot of trusting yourself and trusting the process, and not just once and done. And then also it helps to expose yourself to diverse perspectives and situations, to stay open to new experiences. Then you can practice how your intuition helps you in different situations. I mean, if you stay in your box and don't venture out, you also won't reach your full potential and reach your full capacity. Anything you'd want to add to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you said, being patient and practicing, be consistent, and don't take it personal if it's wrong. If you've gotten something wrong, or you tried a certain way and it was wrong, do your best not to beat yourself up, because it is a little bit of trial and error. You're gonna be wrong on certain things. You may think that you heard to pick the blue one and you went with purple instead, and it ended up being the blue one. It's okay. It's not, that's how you learn.
We're still human.
Exactly. We're human first. You're gonna mess some of them up. It's okay. That's how you learn. And then you can reflect back and go, it really was blue, and I dismissed it. Okay, now I know. Next time, I'm gonna try and listen from that and go with the first one. Because sometimes I think too, what I've heard from people when they try to use their intuition and tap it, a lot of people have told me that they kind of hear, when you're kind of given a choice, right? between A and B, usually your brain will kind of go A right away, or it'll say B right away. And what I found is people say that they hear both of them at the same time almost. And so they're having a hard time, or one is a little bit quieter than the other. So which one is the right one? And this is where that trial and error kind of comes in. Sometimes it's going to be wrong. That's okay. But more often than not, I found in the first like 1 to 2 seconds, that first one that comes out is typically the intuition that's talking versus your analytical mind. But that's me. That's what I found, and that's what works for me. I don't know. You can try it. It's fun.
Yeah, and most times for me it's the same. It's just sometimes when it's like a bit unsure, like for example, if you're like trying to answer for yourself or for somebody else a yes/no question, sometimes you'll get that clear feeling it's yes or no, and then you'll get it like maybe not so much, and then I'll still kind of like, okay, so is it the first feeling I felt because it wasn't as strong or as convincing? But yes, yeah, things are also just not always black and white. There are a lot of gray areas. So yes, often if it's a simple choice of like go with A or B, your first will be the gut instinct. But yes, leaving room for yes but or no but,
Right. I was gonna say, and that's another good point too, is there's so many maybes in life that I feel like that's where it trips a lot of people up with intuition too, is there's so many things that can go both ways. It just depends on what you do with it in order to get to A or B sometimes. So, leave room for that wiggle room of yes, but, and be open to it could show up completely different than how you normally do it. And that's all that the but is that it's going to show up differently. So don't freak out,
Exactly. But that's when the next point comes into play, is where you use intuition alongside logic. So things are not always logical, but you can't completely ignore rational analysis.
Yeah.
You can't completely ignore it. You just combine it and fit it together, because it doesn't always work. I mean, I've had experiences, like I've had a relationship in the past where I had this feeling that something wasn't right, but I didn't know what was wrong. Partly because I hadn't developed my intuition beyond, because I was taught that you don't question, you just obey. But I'm somebody who always questions everything. So I had this struggle of not going further. But so I'd sit there and I'd feel, but something is wrong, but I can't see anything wrong. You're not showing me anything that's wrong. Yeah. So my son also agreed. It's like something is wrong, but I don't know what's wrong. So I'm like, but if I can't see what's wrong, then maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the one that's wrong, because I'm applying now logic to it. I'm not seeing anything. So it doesn't always work, but you can work with it together and still see what wins out in the end. Red flag is a red flag. You just may not, you may not always logically be able to see what the difference is. So
yeah, sometimes we miss them, and that's okay. Same type of thing for me as well, that there were certain people and whatnot. Like, I can look back that I remember that my intuition was telling me something at that time, and I just didn't pay attention to it. I was like, whatever, it's fine, no biggie. Like, I either that, or I would dismiss it completely of, no, that's a silly thought. Why would I think that this person's terrible all of a sudden, or that they're cheating on me? And then come to find out 2 weeks later they were, and it was like, oh, maybe if I had listened, But it's for me, I find it helpful to reflect back and see those kind of things together, because it makes it kind of click for me now. That's what it was trying to tell me. Okay, I got it. So I can listen to go forward. And it just reinforces to me, I need to listen to myself first before anybody else. All of my friends could think that someone's the bee's knees, but if my intuition is telling me he's garbage, I should probably listen to me first.
Yes, probably. Yeah, that's again like going down to when I think it's also ingrained in us, because you're always taught to put other people above yourself. So you don't think about how it necessarily affects you in the long run, as long as you're helping them, and
Yeah.
We're taught to put our own needs aside, but you're also not being the best version of yourself if you constantly do that. It's selfish to
Right.
to practice self-care or to pay attention to what is best for you in the long run. It's not always about what's best with everybody else, and I think that tends to cloud our judgment when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Why we ignore our intuition, because you
Mm-hmm.
feel this and you think, okay, well, it's only really hurting me, not anybody else, so it's fine. Carry
Right,
on.
right,
So that
exactly.
can help you.
And what I was gonna say, like women end up having that issue more than men do because I feel
Mm.
like as women we're taught to care for other people, to care
Yes,
for
and nurturing.
everyone else before ourselves. And if we do so, that we're selfish. Better
Yeah,
not speak up because we'll disrupt the flow here. Better not say anything and offend anybody else because I'm not
exactly.
comfortable. And I think that's where your intuition really does challenge you in certain situations like that, because once you kind of have that loud inner knowing of something's
Mm.
not good for you or something needs to be said, it's kind of hard to just sit there and be uncomfortable then. Sometimes some
Mm.
people will have to say something because you can't take it anymore. So
Yeah,
we'll kind of push you into some new zones, but I feel like again, it's only for our benefit to do that because our intuition is telling us you need to stand up for yourself. You need to take care of you too. You matter just as much as everybody else does. So,
exactly. Yeah,
mhm.
I agree. I guess we kind of no, we're not really. We're steering off the topic of using it alongside logic, but I'm not entirely on board with that. I think that needs further exploration because. But it depends also what kind of person you are. At the very least, you need to, when your intuition is nudging you, you need to explore the possibility that you may be right rather than, completely disregard it just because there's no logical explanation.
Right.
Um,
Um, I was gonna
especially
say,
if you.
and the whole thing about using the logic, I think it depends on the situation and what we're talking about because obviously there's some very simple ones, like don't jump off bridges because your intuition told you to, it doesn't make a lot of
Yes,
sense to do that.
yes.
But if there's certain situations, that say maybe, now's the best time to leave this area,
Mm.
go with the idea that maybe it's right. Go for it and see what happens. Again, I feel like in those situations to test them, you're probably not going to get anything like terribly horrible if you go the other way. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to be
Mm.
the end of the world if you choose B instead of A.
Yeah.
So that's the other reason too that I think to bring that sense of calmness with your logic, that it's okay to kind of test it a little bit.
Yes.
Um, but leave room, like you said, leave room for it to be correct, leave room for it to be incorrect. Let it do what it needs to do so that you can learn the most out of it.
Mm. Yeah, if you're someone that's prone to anxiety, also, you may be triggered a little bit more easy. So then I feel like then would be a good time to. I mean, if you know you're not somebody that, if you know you're somebody that's triggered by anxiety or plagued with anxiety, then yes, maybe apply or give room more for logic. But if it's not in your nature to be anxious and you're only anxious because people are telling you that you're being crazy, then yeah, maybe you can put logic out the window a little bit. More
Yeah, a little bit
basis.
more leeway.
Yes. So then next, what are some exercises that worked for you when you were working on strengthening your intuition?
Um,
What are things that work for you? Like, are you good with visualization or?
um, I'm usually better when it comes to like what I started with was I watched a lot of those things of like which card has my energy attached to it kind of thing or what
Mm,
color is the stone in my hand. I did a lot of those to start with when I was first working on my intuition because that way I had a bigger range of getting it right or wrong and I could see immediately if I was right or wrong. And that's for me, it was more of my gifts are to hear it. So I have clairaudience and then the claircognizance. So it kind of is both. And that's how I did that. So those worked really well for me. Another one that was really good was using your body as almost like a pendulum. So you kind of get into a centered position, standing upright, and then you ask yourself some test questions like, is my name Samantha? And your body should naturally go forward for yes and backward for no. So that's another thing I started doing was with that, and it worked really well for me to just be able to kind of tap into what I was feeling too at the same time. So how about you? What do you
I use
use?
I use that test. That test interesting. I learned to do that for when I was picking out crystals. Like when you go into a shop and you know which crystal is right for you. That test, like you would hold it up to your solar plexus chakra, and if you would
Never thought of that.
feel how your body goes. That's what I learned for that. Energy. What I did was practice with energy readings. How to, like you can do it where how when you like go into a room or see what your reactions are when you meet somebody for the first time perhaps, or even not if you haven't met them the first time. You can also like kind of gauge their mood or what kind of reaction you're going to get from it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a potentially difficult person. What I did was I joined empath groups and I tried to just practice reading just based on that without even really using things like cards, like tarot oracle cards. But that's also a good way to practice, is to like draw a card for yourself to try and gauge how you feel the energy of the day will be, and then see how it turns out at the end of that. That's a good way.
Yeah, the tarot
Also,
was a great way too for tapping in with the intuition. It does, I feel like the best way to get out of it is to have a little journal with it. So it's a little bit more
yes,
effort so that you can write it down, what you're
yes,
feeling in that moment, and then go back to it, the next day or at the end of the day and kind of go, oh, I was really on point, or I got a little
yes,
bit of that
reflect.
today, and you can write that down too. So you could even go back and see, like, out of 7 days, I was right on 6 of them, or I was right on
Yes.
5. So I think
Going
that's
back
really
to the
cool too.
going back to the journaling. But also, if you're a creative type person, things like painting, writing,
Mm-hmm.
well, journaling is writing, but it can also be poetry if that's your thing. It can help you to tap into your intuitive flow. It might even be things like music. Music is also a good
Mm-hmm.
way if you're musically inclined. Is there anything else you want to add to that, or?
No, I think we covered a lot of the basics.
This other section I've got here is like there's common myths about intuition. Like one that you actually touched on earlier about you're not always right. So it's not true that intuition is always right. It's something that will improve with practice, and it isn't infallible like any skill that you're working on. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. Another one is that intuition is purely mystical, while it is to some extent, because mystical, yeah, you're tapping into connecting with your guides and with spirit, but it's also a natural mental process. So it's not just that. There can be a difference between that inner knowing and knowing from your guides.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not only that. And then
Mm-hmm.
also the last one is that only certain people have intuition. Everybody has intuition.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that you need to be able to develop if it's not something you're
Mm-hmm.
used to practicing. It amazes me though, a lot of people think that only certain people have gifts. Not everybody has gifts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all do. And you could also potentially tap into any one of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just some will come more easily to you than other things. I mean,
Yeah,
but
I always laugh when some of my friends and stuff, I try to convince them that they have gifts too. And I've given up on that boat, but now they still make me laugh because they're like, oh, I can't do what you do. And, I could never figure it out. So I don't have that gift. And I'm like, yeah, but just because you don't have my gift doesn't mean that you don't have your own
a
gift.
different one.
Exactly. You might have a really cool gift too. It's just buried in there. You just
Exactly.
gotta go look for it a little bit.
Yeah, everybody has some sort of gift. And you could theory it's just harder for others. I know there's like some people ask me why I don't do this or that, and I'm like, because it's a lot more work. So I'd rather
Hmm.
focus on the things that come more naturally. So I mean, then
I agree.
it feels right. But yeah, you could, and also yeah, I don't know who has all the time to study all of them or to
Yes,
everything.
right. Exactly.
I'm a little bit ADHD, so sometimes I try and then I think, let's try something new, and then it lasts all of 5 minutes. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I've also, even with my tarot and oracle cards, I think I've end up when I'm actually doing a reading, I go with the ones that I'm more comfortable with. So I have a bunch here that are probably only there for me to play with, not to actually to actually use, because I think, oh, I'm going to learn this, and I just never do. I thought it was really cool. I had one deck that was, I think it was called the Arthurian Tarot, because I'm very interested in the King Arthur and Guinevere
Oh,
era.
okay.
But it was like an interest. I just didn't have the time, because I thought it comes with the whole course, and the course doesn't just teach you how to use tarot, it also teaches you about the history of the era. Yeah,
Okay.
that never happened. I think I got through like the first chapter, and eventually it got rehomed, because I just didn't have the
No,
time to focus enough on it like it.
I
But yeah.
have the same thing. I have ADHD, so I jump around from project all the time. Like I'll go on like a painting binge and I'll paint for like a month and then nothing for like 6 months because I'm like, no, we don't need to paint anymore. We got it all out of our system. It's fine.
Yeah, no, it's done. I did that same thing with painting, because my daughter is an artist, so she had a studio for a bit. So I initially joined to, it was more for me to spend time with her on a regular basis, and to support
Mm-hmm.
her. So then I also decided that I'm going to do a paint by numbers for my son, and then my husband wanted one too, and then I was like, really, like, because it takes my time away from everything else. And then I think then Lydia, my sister, thought, oh no, I'm into that, so she decided to buy them for me as gifts. And I'm like, okay, we've moved on to something new now. We're over it. So now all the paint is sitting drying out in my cupboard, yeah, in my
Yeah,
office. And
that's the paint drying too.
the joys of ADHD. But it helps, to have somebody. This is also where it's good to surround yourself with like-minded people, to practice your intuition. Because if you have somebody that's going to support you and practice it will help. Like, if you're somebody who struggles like us, get somebody who will be willing to journal with you and hold you accountable for it. Because otherwise, if you do it that way, you're more likely to follow through with it than if you just try and do it on your own, especially if you're like us and you're a bit ADHD. Discipline is not. Look, we can get hyper focused and hyper fixated on something too, but that doesn't last forever either.
Yeah,
It's it's just until
exactly. You gotta
the
ride it while
mood
it's there.
wears off. But yeah, it's good to have somebody who will support you, even if they're
Yeah.
not going to do exactly what you're doing, but somebody who will hold you accountable for it and give you the support where you need through it. I had my sister when I started out on this journey, so yeah, I think I drove her crazy for the first few weeks as well. But yeah, that's, try and surround yourself with like-minded people. Otherwise, you could easily fall into the habit of not continuing to develop your intuition. So it is a skill, and to like summarize it, it's one of the more valuable ones that can help you with your decision making, can help you in your creativity and self-awareness. And yeah, so if you practice quieting your mind, and I just want to, we'll touch on this when we talk about, not touch on it, we'll discuss it more in detail when we do an episode on meditation. But a lot of people, and I had to learn the same thing as well, they say, but I can't meditate because I can't keep quiet the voices in my head, or I can't go. They think that people believe that you need to go into deep meditation to be able to do that, and it works either way. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to do that, because it's not as easy for everyone to just shut
Mm-hmm.
everything off. Look, if you're neurodivergent in any way, like ADHD or any kind of, or autistic or whatever it may be, that is a huge challenge for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it still works.
Yeah.
Even if you end up falling asleep while it's
Yeah.
happening, it's still working on a subconscious
Yeah.
level. And
Yeah.
you just need to, so quieting your mind, you'll have the intrusive thoughts, acknowledge them and move them aside and carry on and keep on
Mm-hmm.
keeping on.
Yeah.
And keep practicing. You don't have to shut down entirely or go into deep meditative stance for it to be effective. It's still effective.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge misconception. I also shrugged off meditation in the beginning because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it for for years now, and I'm still not doing it the way, like, going into deep meditative.
I was
Not often.
gonna say it's really hard for me to go into a deep meditative state. and stay there if I can get there. It's still going to take me a while, but usually if I get there, I'm going to fall asleep. Um, so I mean, I try to keep my meditations to like 5 to 10 minutes. I'm usually not in there pretty long, and the way I see meditation is it's just a nice little check-in refresh with myself and with spirit, and that's, you can achieve those things in 5 to 10 minutes.
Yes,
you
yeah.
know
No, you don't. Look, when you would need, but that's another, we'll talk about that when we do
yeah.
meditation. Let's not touch on that. But yes, but practicing regularly, but quieting your mind is not necessarily shut everything off, because if you're neurodivergent in any way, it's not going to happen easily.
Yeah.
But yes, the more you practice, the easier it will come for you. And yeah, just keep it small to begin with, and stay curious, and let your intuition guide you toward a
hmm
more authentic and fulfilling life.
hmm
So,
I
thank
agree.
you for joining us. Yeah, thank you for joining us, and we hope you will stick around for us as we continue uh, with more episodes. We will try to do this on a weekly basis, but we'll see how it goes. It will be probably mostly you and I guess, but occasionally I'll try and bring in other guests who are perhaps more knowledgeable than Samantha and I are on some topics. But thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Bye.